Well, good morning, everybody. My name is Zach Eichenberger, Director of Marketing for Control Product Systems Group. Thanks for joining. Just a heads up, we're recording this session today. If that makes anybody uncomfortable, now would be the time to leave, no judgment. I will share a recording of the session in the post-webinar notes, and those notes will go out to all that have registered regardless of attendance. You know, LiftMaster has been on a roll lately with new product releases, and those products meet the demands of integrators and dealers alike. So I thought it made sense to present an overview of the latest innovations. And while these are, you know, big improvements on an already impressive ecosystem of products, I think you'll find the learning curve to be easy, as these are based on, you know, previous form factors and general architecture of the products. So we're going to hit the high points, but you can imagine topics like connected access control and telephone entry could get into the weeds pretty quickly. We'll attempt to get all of those questions answered. If we don't, I'll provide additional contacts and resources, and we'll stay on a little long to answer additional questions. So we've muted your mics and turned your video off just to maintain audio quality for the presentation, but please utilize the chat feature. It's at the bottom of your screen. I'll monitor that line and pass those questions on to Bill as necessary. Bill McCoy is facilitating the training today. He's been a perennial trainer in this industry for decades, really. We're happy to have him. Bill, we've got a lot of material to cover today. Thanks for organizing and presenting today.
So we're going to be talking about the HD gate operator line, which comprises two operators, one slide and one swing. Why did we bring this out? Well, the main thing is that previously, if you wanted to do a gate that was more than 50 feet long on a slide gate, you had to move to an AC motor, which did not have battery backup capability. The HD enables you to go up to a 75-foot gate and still have the battery backup feature. Speed is variable on this unit. That's one of the major differences between our other products. You have an adjustable control on the main board. You can go anywhere from half a foot per second up to 1 foot per second. And for some reason, I'm getting audio feedback here, so it's a bit of a challenge for me. I don't know if you're hearing the feedback or not.
You sound pretty good on our end.
Okay, good. The unit has a brushless DC motor, which means that you don't have to replace brushes over time. The motor's been rated for over 6 million cycles. So you should be able to get long-term activity out of this. It's a continuous duty operator, can open and close all day long. It's easy to switch between 120 and 240 volt through a little harness plug, the same way as on our other operators, like the SL585 and 595. It is solar capable. However, if you run it on solar, you will not have unlimited duty cycle. How many cycles you can do per day will depend upon how heavy and how long your gate is. So that will vary if someone wants to run it directly on solar. You can do on the slide gate operator, oh wait, that's the swing. On the slide gate operator, up to a 3,000-pound gate at 75 feet, which is much longer and heavier than the CSL24UL. It is comparable to the SL585. The swing gate really depends upon which arm you use as to how heavy a gate you can do. It can do up to a 22-foot long gate, which is comparable to the CSW 200UL, but it can do a much heavier gate, particularly if you use the heavy-duty arm, which is an optional addition to the line. You can do up to a 4,500-pound gate at 16 feet or a 2,500-pound at 22 feet if you use the heavy-duty arm. Now here's a picture of the heavy-duty arm. The standard arm, however, if we just take a look back, can do up to a 1,500-pound gate at 22 feet. So that is still more than we can do with the CSW 24UL. That maxes out at 20 feet. This unit is, as all of our operators, fully compliant with UL 325. So that when you get a slide gate operator, it will come with both an edge and a photo eye in the same way that the CSL 24 does. On the HDSW, you will get a set of photo eyes with that, as you would with any of the other swing gate operators. It has the ability to do rear installation the same way as the CSL 24 UL. It's exactly the same structure for the pulleys, and you can easily readjust the pulleys to do a rear install if that's desired. There is no difference in terms of pad depth for this operator versus our other operators. It has the same footprint as the SL 3000. And again, this is just basic information for any slide gate operator. You want to keep your chain level and about 1 inch of sag per 10 feet of chain. So that means if you've got a very long gate and that you have a lot of sag as a result, you might want to raise your operator up higher when you're doing an installation. Now here's a picture of the main board for the unit. The main board looks almost identical to the CSL and CSW 24 UL. The only significant difference is the addition of the speed control, which you can see is near the top in the center, just below the diagnostic LEDs. Other than that, all of the inputs do exactly the same thing. There is one major difference though. The accessory power output on this operator can handle up to 1 amp of current, whereas on the other operators, they're maxed out at 500 milliamps. So it has twice the amp capability. One other big difference, however, is the way we supply power to the unit. So there is an additional board inside this operator, which is a power adapter board. Now, I'm not going to go through all the different inputs on the main board, although that information is here in the presentation because it is exactly the same in terms of function and connection as the existing operators. Now, the speed control's over here, and then you have your main and accessory power input. So power comes in over to the lower right instead of on the plug-in over to the lower left as on our other boards. And I will show you what power goes to each of those wires a little bit later in the presentation. This unit does have the posi lock feature, which means if someone were to force the gate off of the close limit, the motor will kick in and shove the gate back to the close limit. All of the DC pad mount operators have the same feature, by the way. You program this for transmitters in exactly the same way that you do all of the other operators in our line. You have a learn button, press a learn button once the transmitter light comes on, you hit the button on your transmitter, and you program that transmitter as an open stop, close stop function. If you want to make it a open only, you press the learn button, the transmitter light comes on, press the open button over the test buttons, then the button on your transmitter, and that is now an open only command. The LEDs are the same on this unit as on all of the other units. So there is no difference in those functions. You've got the gate moving, the timer, the battery load, the accessory power overload, all have exactly the same function. Which means that it's not really that difficult to shift into installing one of these if you've done any of the other operators previously. And the bipart delay has the same functionality as previous operators. If you have two operators paired together, which you can either do through a wire connection or through a wireless connection. And if your bipart delay is on, then the primary gate will open first and close last. If you turn bipart delay on both units, then you will be in synchronized close mode, which means that the gates will arrive at the closed position at the same time, even if they travel different distances. You also have speed control, minimum to max, minimum being 0.5 foot per second, maximum being 1 foot per second on the slide. Now on the swing gate, the difference is about 12 seconds to go 90 degrees on max speed and 28 seconds on min speed. So it really varies based upon how heavy your gate is. If you have a heavier gate that you're swinging, you probably want to slow it down, or else you're likely to get obstruction faults. You set limits and force in exactly the same way for all the CSLs. So they are electronic limits. When you first turn on the unit, the set open and set close LEDs will be blinking. You use the move gate buttons to move the gate to what position you want, then hit set for that position. That light will go on solid. The other light continues to blink. Use the move gate buttons to move the gate to the second position. Hit that set button, both lights will go out. At that point, you then need to run one full cycle so you can set force and run distance. This is true on all of our operators that have electronic limits, and it's one of the things that people often forget to do in the field. If you do not do that, you're likely to have issues with your limits over time. All right, now here's where it gets a little different. If we look at the bottom of the main board, over to the left at the bottom is your power board connection. So the separate power board that's on this unit, it connects directly to the main board here. And there are measurements you can make here. We're not going to go into all the technical stuff today, but we do have that information available. Then the board sends out commands to the power adapter board through the motor drive connection. So you have two harnesses going down to the power adapter board. The ID input is the same. There's an ID resistor, so it can tell whether it's a swing or a slide gate operator. The reset input is where you have a reset button connected, so if you have a double fault entrapment and the alarm's going off, you can turn off the alarm from that input. The encoder connection goes to an absolute position encoder, which is how we do RPM sensor and setting the electronic limits. That is a separate device in the unit as it is on the CSL and CSW. It's in an enclosed plastic case on the HD operators. So you have to open up that case if you want to replace the encoder. But hopefully, because it's in a sealed box, it's unlikely to get any faults, which often happen from dirt or dust getting onto the encoder. Then you have your connection to the 100 decibel alarm. And then there are two connections here that are labeled expansion. One is for the standard expansion board that comes with all of our commercial gate operators. The other is for an additional expansion board that comes with the HD operators that contains two extra relays that you can program to act in different ways. So where with the CSL 24UL, you would have two relays that you can control. You have four relays on the HD operators. This makes it easy to add a red-green light functionality to the system. Now the main board sends power out to the power adapter board through the power out connection. So it gets power in from and out from this one connection area. Then you also have a connection for a solar panel if you want to switch to solar operation. You do not need a solar kit with this unit. All you have to do is directly connect to this input instead of your high voltage AC into the system. The main expansion board for the unit is exactly the same expansion board that's used on all the other products. So once you understand what those features are on the expansion board, there's no change here. Everything connects in exactly the same way. So all the information about the different features in the expansion board are in this presentation, which I will provide to Zach, so you have access to that with all my notes. But we're going to just focus on the basic functionality differences. This is a picture showing where the absolute position encoder is located inside the system. You might notice it's not that easy to get to. That is because our expectation is you will not really have to access it very often. But it can be a bit of a challenge if you do have to change that out. We just do not anticipate that being a major issue because it's in a sealed enclosure. So here's a picture of the power adapter board. And you can see your primary DC voltage in comes in here from your transformer inside the unit. So your high voltage comes in and goes to a transformer. The output from the transformer comes in here, and it's somewhere around 34 volts DC. How does it get to be DC? Well, it goes through a voltage rectifier before it hits this board. So your primary input voltage comes into the power adapter board, and then the voltage goes out to the main board and the accessory power board in the lower right-hand corner. So you get voltage in, and then this board regulates that voltage. Well, it gets regulated on the main board and then comes back into this board to control this board through the regulated DC voltage in. And the last harness, which is over to about the center of the board at the bottom, that is the connection to the motor, and that is how we run the motor. So all power going to the motor comes from this power adapter board, not from the main board. All the main board does is tell the motor how to function. And this is the additional adapter. So that's where the second expansion board plugs in. And you can see you still have the dip switches, function of the relays based upon what the need is at that particular location. Now, the gearbox that we're using for these is a custom design. It is not something that is available off the shelf. They're extremely heavy gearboxes. They're rated for over 6 million cycles. As you can see, these are cutaway versions, so you can see how sturdy the material is being used inside the gearbox. It is not likely to see a lot of wear or tear on the gearbox. Now, the manual release for this unit is a little bit different from the others. There's a pull cable on the side of the operator that trips a mechanical interlock switch, and then that allows the installer to push the gate open or close. On the swing gate operator, you still have the pull handle on the top that you have to release in order to push the gate back and forth. There are two power switches inside the HD operators. One turns off the batteries and one turns off the primary AC in. You can see the diagram here that shows the connection to the primary AC coming in and the transformer voltage coming out. So that is how you turn off the power from that source. But if you do not also turn off the batteries, your unit is still active. So you want to be able to turn off both of those switches if you want to completely disable the unit. The connection for pairing operators is just a two-wire connection, just on all the other operators except for linear actuators, which don't have a wired option because you run two arms to one board. You can also do a wireless dual gate connection, and it connects in exactly the same way, where you hit the learn button twice to go to network, press the open button to tell that particular unit that it is primary in the paired system, go over to the second unit, hit the learn radio button twice, then press the close button to say you are the second unit. Put each other, they have learned each other and will now function as a pair. You can connect accessories to either unit in the pair. It does not matter. They will talk to each other and function from each. These units are MyQ compatible. They do require a gateway in order to connect to MyQ. They do not have a Wi-Fi capability. So gateway, you can then add it into a standard MyQ system, or you can also connect it to uses. Does everybody understand the difference between the standard MyQ features and what you get if they shift over to MyQ Business? That would be the main difference here, and we're going to cover that a little bit more when we get to the CAPXLV. But you have a lot more control capability, and you get a lot more information from the unit through MyQ Business. MyQ basically just enables you to see whether the gate is open or closed, to give commands to the unit from a remote device, and to get notifications from the unit as you described. For example, you can say, between certain hours, I want to receive a notification if the gate is held open for more than 20 minutes. When we move among business features, you now have the ability, when paired with a CAPXLV, of getting direct information from the operator through the MyQ Business platform. Now that's true of our other operators as well. There's nothing different about the functionality for the HD operators than there is for any of the other operators in the line currently. This just shows the connections for main power coming in and how you connect that up. This is more for a technical side, so I'm not really spending time here unless somebody has questions related to that. These are the different test points with indications as to what voltage you should read at different test points. So this is helpful for the installing technician or the repair technician, but not so much from a sales perspective. This unit, like all of the others, comes with a full wiring diagram, which also includes the different fault conditions that can occur in the 2-digit diagnostic LEDs. And that comes inside the unit in a water-resistant paper, but of course, if someone takes it out, you can still access this information in the installation manual for the unit. And so I'd like to find out if there are any questions related to this and these two operators, the slide and the swing gate operator. The primary functionality for this is expected to be to replace the SL585 if someone needs battery backup features. It is more expensive than the 585, however, so if they don't need the battery backup, we still will be maintaining that operator in the line.
Hey, Bill, I think you hit it pretty well, and I know some of the presentation can go into some fairly technical details, but maybe just to recap, you know, the capability of these machines on this slide gate operator. We can handle gates up to what I want to say 75 feet.
75 foot at 3,000 pounds.
So I think that's the main takeaway is we've got a incredibly robust slide gate operator that can handle a very large gate. You know, we've made that transition to brushless DC motors, so we've got that efficiency now. We've got the physical manual release. I think those are pretty key points. And the swing gate operator, what are the specs on that one, Bill?
Well, with the standard arm, and we can just flip back up here to the, shouldn't take long. We'll get to where that's detailed, but with the standard arm, it can do 22 feet at 1,500 pounds. With the long arm, you can do 22 feet at, I got it here, at 2,500 pounds. So that is a very long and heavy swing gate.
Yeah, or 14 feet. At
14 feet, you can do a 2,800 pounds. So if somebody's got like a wrought iron gate that's very heavy, just make sure it's not also super long. Fortunately, most of the time when they do things like wrought iron gates, they're relatively short. I do remember running into one situation where they asked if our linear actuator could handle a gate that weighed 1,200 pounds. And it was only like an 8-foot long gate. And I said, why in the world is it so heavy? Well, it's solid metal.
Yeah, and you know, these swing gates were built, this heavy duty swing gate was built with, you know, wind in mind. I mean, however, a fully solid gate, I mean, it's going to be a challenge.
For any swing gate operator, that is going to be a challenge. Swing gates should have openings so that the wind can pass through.
Right. So we're hedging our bet here. with a really strong machine, but yeah, just want to keep that in mind.
But it does automatically adjust the force so that if you have a windy day and it's getting faults as a result, just give another command and it will increase the force allotted to move the gate. Keep doing that and you'll eventually overcome the wind.
Yep. One more call out here, and then we've got a couple questions. Sorry, Bill, go ahead.
Okay. I've never had to do more than a total of 3 commands to overcome a wind situation.
Oh, very
so you
good.
do it the first time, you get a force reversal. Do it a second time, it moves a little farther and get a force reversal. And by the third time, it does not get stopped by the wind.
Very good.
Of course, I've never done that in a 70-mile-an-hour wind situation. So.
Well, I think we're all in trouble with that. So,
yeah.
Just to call out here with the capabilities of these machines being so strong, be able to handle such large gates, I'd imagine you're going to get into some industrial applications. And as noted here, out of the box, this can handle 120 or 240 volt single phase. Also noted here, they have a 3-phase converter for those industrial jobs. So if you got a 3-phase power, that's all that's available at the site. That converter is really slick. It installs quite easily and gives you the ability to go 3-phase. So
yeah, I had a call on that yesterday from a guy in Georgia, and he'd never seen one before. And so he says, well, there's all kinds of wires here. How difficult is this to hook up? I said, well, there's only 4 wires that you actually have to connect. You have to connect the 2 wires for the incoming power from your 3-phase. L1 and L2 go to these 2 wires based upon whether it's 230 volt or 460 volt. And then you're out with 120 and you just connect that the way you would any other operator. It's a very simple connection and it fits physically inside the housing for the operator.
Yep, very slick. You guys did a really good job with that. Hey, Jason asked a question, using larger commercial solar setups that is regulated before this unit, where would we hook up, battery only power? So he's not utilizing the regulation through the board. This is for a bigger, kind of commercial solar setup as we would see down there in Arizona as Jason is in. I'd probably rather tackle that question after this session, just because I'd like to dig into some of the finer details there, Jason, and make sure that we're not missing anything. So if we're looking to go outside of the box, what LiftMaster recommends from a solar perspective, let's tackle that on a one-on-one, if that's okay.
Well, at the same time, that little connection over in the lower right-hand corner, that would be where external DC power comes in to the board. Whether it's directly from a solar panel or from a solar distribution system, that's where you would hook up.
Yeah, and I think he's looking to do something a little more outside the box, but
okay.
We'll tackle that sidebar. Jorge asks, how much testing has been done with this operator? Bill, I don't know if you've got insight into that. I know it's been in development for several years. I don't have any particular stats available.
Well, if you look at our normal testing procedure for a new gate operator product, number one, we put it in environmental compression chambers so we can test it at high humidity, high heat, low humidity, high heat, high humidity, low heat, cold. We try it in every different environmental condition that we can do through our chambers, and we can drop our chambers down to like minus 80 degrees or something like that. So we do extensive testing. We do full cycle testing where we just run it open and close until it fails to make sure that we can meet what we are projecting. In this case, we're projecting 6 million cycles minimum. So we actually had a unit and it just ran until finally something failed in it. We got over 6 million cycles out of it. I don't know what more testing you'd want us to do in that regard.
Yeah, I know they've put it through its paces, and we've actually got several units out in the field now that we've sold, and they're working really well. You also had a pretty extensive beta program where you put these into several different situations, and I know, being involved with that to some degree, you were looking for the biggest, baddest gates, the windiest locations, and they seem to have passed with flying colors. So.
Well, when we do the test for cycles, we do it with the maximum gate length, maximum weight. So we try and stress the operator to the, the maximum that we claim it will work.
Very good. A couple questions from Kevin. Do these units have soft start and soft stop? Do they ramp up, ramp down?
Yes, absolutely. That's the joy of working with the DC motor, is the ability to adjust speed. So yes, they have slow start, slow stop.
Very good. He also asks, and I believe what he's asking here is if we need to drop the chain down the bottom of the unit, or we need to put in chain keepers or like a chain trough. Do we need to trim? Do we need to trim the housing of the cover to accommodate for that on the slide gate operator?
Well, it kind of depends upon what mechanical device you're using to do that. You have a relatively big gap there where the chain comes through, but this particular housing is not all that difficult to cut into to make that larger should you need to, but it's really going to vary depending upon what device you're using to add that kind of chain trough. My suggestion is raise the operators up higher so you don't need to use a chain trough. Put them on a pedestal or get them up further off the ground so you can accommodate the additional sag you need for the longer gate.
Yeah, and I think that's the answer. If you need to raise this up and you are going to use a chain trough, that you'd lift it up, and yeah, you probably do need to trim that housing for a 75-foot gate. That's a lot of chain, so I'm with you.
Yeah, you got about 7 to 8 inches of sag on that. Yeah.
Yep. A couple more questions, Bill, and then maybe we can move on to CAPXLV, just because we're getting a little shy on time. Will a CAP2D communicate with the operator for troubleshooting? I can take this one while you're switching over the presentation. No, the CAP.
Okay.
Yep. No, you do need a CAPXL or a CAPXLV to get troubleshooting diagnostics through MyQBusiness. To my knowledge, a CAP2D will not communicate with a gate operator. It does speak wirelessly to that operator, and the CAP2D today does not have that 900 megahertz communication.
That does not mean it might not have that in future.
Yeah.
You're looking at a change to the CAP2D structure. We're going to do a redesign, but that's going to take a while.
Very good.
Next year, maybe.
Awesome. Yeah, looking for those feature set updates. So, and Terry asked a question about some very large residential gates, 18 feet long, 7 feet tall. They've got some older CSWs, a few years old. They seem to be wearing out some gearboxes and arm kits. And so, yes, so Terry, you're asking basically, is this machine be a good replacement for that? And what do those heavy duty arms look like? So I tell you what, in the post webinar notes, I'll send out the manual for those long arms. It just basically grabs much further out on the gate and gives the operator a mechanical advantage. So yeah, that could be a fix for you, although I don't believe the new heavy duty arm will adapt to the older CSW. So we would need to verify that.
No, they were designed specifically for the HD swing gate operator.
Yeah, I believe it has a bigger hub. So
yeah,
but we can take that offline, Terry. Be happy to kind of jump into that situation. We can talk about some resolution for you. Michael asks, uphill arms. Well, Michael, we don't make an uphill arm due to UL 325 restrictions. The UL 325 does not allow us to move a gate uphill because that gate, when disconnected.
My recommendation is always to level the ground.
Yeah, if possible, that's the way to go. All right, Bill, let's go CAPXLV here.
Okay. All right, the CAPXLV is essentially a CAPXL with the video addition. There is no significant difference to the functionality of the unit other than the addition of the video features. So I'm gonna skip over a lot of the stuff that's in this presentation that's about the basic functionality of a CAPXL and how you connect to the internet and so on. We're going to focus on what you get with the video. Number one, you have access to streaming video from the unit for 24/7, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Look at what's happening at the time. There's a change here. I didn't update this presentation. There's 1 day of cloud storage included with the unit. If you want more than that, you can get cloud storage for up to 30 days with a subscription, and we'll talk about the pricing for that a little bit later in the presentation. However, any video event that occurs is in an MP4 format, so you can always download that to your computer and keep a record of it indefinitely. So that's up to the individuals at the site. But the live streaming is part of the system, and you can see that at any point in time. The way the camera basically functions is that any event that occurs at the unit, you will see a video record of 15 seconds before the event occurs and a minimum of 15 seconds after it occurs. It would be longer if there's actually a phone call going on and that lasts more than 15 seconds. It would keep the video going throughout the phone call. So once that phone call is terminated, either by hang up or access granted, then it would stop the video at that point. How does it capture 15 seconds before an event? Because the camera is live all the time, it's recording everything as it occurs. So when an event occurs, then it registers and says, well, I need to see the video from the 15 seconds before X event. And we're going to show you a video a little bit later in the presentation of someone coming up and banging on the unit. So you can see that you get the image of that person approaching the unit, not just after they've attacked your unit. So the outside of the unit has not changed. The only difference is that there's a camera in where it used to be just a location to put a camera. All of the other connections are the same. We did recently change the display on the CAPXLV to a better display that we located. We have a different molded rubber design structure to secure that, to stop any water from getting in and going across the face of the display. It is a better touch sensitivity on the new screen, and you do not need to do any calibration on it. Previously, there was dip switch 2 on the power board for the unit, and you would use that to reorient the screen if it got out of alignment. That does not happen with the new display. So one less thing that you have to worry about. We did do a 1 pound steel ball drop test on it, and it was twice as strong as the previous display. So we do pass the UL 20-inch and 36-inch drop ball test. The camera has a diagonal viewing area of 135 degrees. So it's not quite a full wide angle. At the same time, it is wider than a normal, just a straight shot from a camera. So you get to see things at the periphery of the area where the camera is pointed. It is a static mount on the camera, so it does not adjust around back and forth. You just get 135 degrees from the center point. The live stream resolution is 1080 pixels. The video call resolution is 360 pixels. And it's in a 16:9 aspect ratio, so it's a rectangular look to the video structure. The frame rate is 25 frames a second on the live stream and 15 a second on the video call. The big thing here is the minimum illumination. 3 lux is a very low illumination. I don't know if you are familiar with what that basically means, but at very low light levels, you still get very clear images from the unit. We did a test of a competitive unit that switches to black and white when the light gets dim. And the person we were using was wearing a black t-shirt with white lettering. And on their camera, it showed up as a white t-shirt. Whereas on ours, because it does not do the shift to black and white, it just keeps the color resolution even at low levels. You could clearly see the face of the person, that they were wearing a black shirt with white lettering, and it was a much better overall resolution than the unit that we were contrasting it with. It is a very simple process to update an existing CAPXL. You basically just have to add the camera onto it, and there's a slide later on in the presentation that will show you that. Now, because we are transmitting more data with a video image, there are data requirements that must be met for this system to function correctly. So you need an internet connection that has a minimum 5 megabytes per second upload and download speed. If you do not have that, then you will have issues related to the sending of the video images. We do not recommend using the CAPXL for internet connection at this time. We are working on a version of a unit that will be more cellular based, that will be able to handle video through cellular, but we do not have that at this time. We've had issues with communication speed from the CAPXL SIM card structure. We are compatible with a lot of different Wi-Fi routers, but not with all of them. So we're very clear here on what routers will work with this system and what will not. So just make sure that their Wi-Fi setup is acceptable for what the system can handle. So once again, there's very specific information on the Wi-Fi limitations. Now, one of the things that we're offering, and I have a slide on this later in the presentation, is we will provide a technical consultant for any installation before sale to verify that they meet all the conditions required for the system to work well. So we will basically handhold the dealer through the process to make sure that the system will work the way they want it to before they buy the unit and start installing it. So we will cover that a little bit later in the presentation, and we do have a cut sheet available to you that gives you the contact information so you can set that up for your dealers. You need a continuous Wi-Fi strength of at least minus 65 dBm, and there are devices out there that you can access through a phone app that will tell you what your Wi-Fi strength is at any given point. So it's one of the things that needs to be tested at the site before you bid this unit. Because if you want it to work correctly with video, you need to have adequate connection speed. So what do you do if it doesn't have adequate Wi-Fi strength? You do a hardwire connection to the internet instead, which means running cable and trenching and so on. So there's an additional cost factor to that.
If I could just
Does everybody know what?
Sorry, go ahead.
What?
If I could just comment, Bill, thanks for double clicking on this. I mean, pre-site surveys are so important for any connected product to ensure that we're going to have, the bandwidth required and the proper hardware required. We're kind of, I feel like we're tiptoeing between two lines. On one hand, this unit is plug and play, right? It's very easy to install. It's very easy to connect to a network. It's kind of like connecting like a phone. If you're hardwired in most cases, it's just going to fire up and find home in the cloud. But it's just super critical, though, that we go through that pre-site survey and ensure that we've got, good, adequate upload, download speeds and the right equipment in place.
Which is why we have a checklist available that you can give to your customers. So they can go through that checklist, and if they fill out everything, they will determine if it is compatible or not at this point. So that's another recent addition, is the site checklist. So you do that before you sell the job. Now, does everybody know what we mean by a secondary authentication network? That's where you don't just connect to the internet. You have to get some kind of feedback, whether it's a splash page like in a hotel or a callback through a phone and stuff. The CAPXL does not support that. There's no real way to do that. So it will not connect to the internet through that kind of a structure. So here's the cut sheet for the installation support that we now have available, and it gives you the contact information to get a technical support person to step you through your pre-sale on any given application. We also have a stream of new videos related to the CAPXLV. And Zach, you already have the connections for those, right? I sent those to you.
Yep, I'll provide those in the post-webinar notes.
Right. And then, of course, you also have access to our frequently asked questions and our technical support articles 24/7. So if someone's trying to figure out something after hours, that information is still available to them. Right, so this information is no different than on the CAPXL. There are two different antennas involved. There's a Security Plus 2.0 and a Wi-Fi antenna. If you're planning to connect to the internet through Wi-Fi, you better have the Wi-Fi antenna on or you're going to have problems. The Security Plus 2.0 antenna is necessary if you're using passport transmitters and if you want to connect to MyQ. So the board has not changed internally to the unit. So all of this information is basically the same as it has been. So all the connection points, everything is the same. So I'm going to skip through all of this part, but I will provide this presentation with all my notes related to this so you can look at that if you're not currently familiar with what the CAPXL does. So none of this is different. The big difference here is when you get to the video mode. So after you've connected to the internet, you have a connection point here. If you go to where it says audio video, it will show you a picture from the camera. There are no settings really. It just is showing you, yes, the camera is working, and this is the picture you're seeing from the camera at this time. So that was, as you see the picture I took there, that was me lying on the floor in front of my CAPXLV taking a picture of the screen. So, but there's no trick to that. It's just, is your camera working or is it not working? All right, so now the SIP setup is different when you add the video. So when you go into MyQ Business to do your session initialization protocol setup, you have a selection. Is it audio only or do you want video? So if you want to use the video streaming for calls that are placed through the unit, so to use the phone app so that residents internal to the property can see who's calling them, you have to select video here. There's no difference in the pricing for the phone.com service, but they do have to know that you're going to be sending video signals. We do not recommend using a second source for video the way we could previously. You could use any SIP provider you wanted. We have not found that to be successful with the video calls. Phone.com works really well with this application. Now, when you have individuals internal to a property who want to have a phone app so they can see who's calling them, they will need to be licensed. Every individual must be licensed, and the licenses are sold in packs of 10. The license costs $1 per month per user. So you want to make sure that you select video, and then you can determine when you select that you do want video calls, you can say what entry points within the system need to have video calls. So if it's a supply room where there's no CAPXLV and there's no camera there, you don't necessarily need to select that. So you can just select the ones that are relevant to where you can use the camera. So once you've enabled video calling and you purchase licenses, what will happen when you approve someone for a license is that they will get an invitation to connect to a phone app. And when they download the phone app, they will see images such as the one over in the left part of this screen. So they will see who's outside their front door asking for entry. And again, they're sold in groups of 10 to the property manager. and the cost is $1 per month per user. So when you are adding a person, if you want to add licenses under the People section of MyQ Business, there's an additional point there where you can select. Before it was just People Management and Guest Management. Now there's MyQ License. So if you click on where it says MyQ License, it will show you how many licenses you have available and who you have assigned them to. Now the picture that's showing here, no one has yet been assigned a license, but you can see that I have 100 licenses available. So if I want to assign those licenses to people within the property, you click on Assign MyQ License, at which point it will give you a list of everyone within the property, and you can select which of those people you want to have a license to have video phone calls. And once you have done that, and you send the invitations, those people that you have selected will receive an invitation that I'll show you in just a moment. Now, in addition, as you're entering a person into the system individually, you can select whether or not to send them a video license at that point in time. So you can either do it from the section on assigning licenses, or you can do it when you're entering an individual new into the property. If you want them to have a video license, you can send them their invitation at that time. And this is what their invitation will look like. So when they see this invitation, they can then download the app to their phone and then click on the activation link, and they will then be enrolled in the system and able to see who is calling them from the CAPXLV. Now the CAPXLV will store video records. And as I mentioned, you get 24-hour storage free, but if you want 30-day storage, you can pay for that as a license. We'll talk about the pricing for that later. But when you go to records in general, this is a picture of your activity page. If it has video, there will be a little title over at the far right of the screen under where it says video. If you want to just see activities that had video, you click on Advanced Search. And when you click on Advanced Search, you can say, show activities that have video down in the lower left-hand corner there. And so I've set this up for between August 11th and August 24th. I want to see only activities that have video. So it brings me up a list of those. Now you can see there's a symbol over on the right-hand side where it says video. If I want to see the video for a particular event, so in this case, I'm going to look at where the shock sensor was activated on August 24th at 5 p.m. So I'm going to click on that video at that point. And what's going to show up at that point, it isn't going to immediately show the video because you're going to have the screen down at the bottom that shows you all of the different units within the facility that have video records for that time. In this case, there was only one that had a video event. So I can select that video by clicking on it, and now I get the picture of the record. So we're going to go ahead and play this record so you can see the shock sensor attack that occurred. So let me just hit the play on this. So you can see the vehicle arriving, and an individual is getting out from the vehicle and walking up to the unit. This is the 15 seconds before the event. So they're trying to get in and they bang on the unit. That is when they activated the shock sensor, and that's why it recorded this particular situation. But you can see you have a very clear picture of the individual who's trying to get in the property and who was banging on your CAPXLV. If you have multiple cameras within your facility and you select a particular day and time, it will show you all of the units within the facility that had video records at that moment. And you can select from those different units to see which video, which activity you're most interested in for that. Again, every one of these video records is in an MP4 format and can be downloaded. So the difference in pricing, the CAPXLV costs $4,799 list. That is essentially $299 more than a CAPXL. To add a CAPXL camera costs $299 list. So all you're paying for is the difference in price between the two. So it's not a huge addition to add the camera to the system. Our subscription pricing has not really changed. This is our primary MyQ Smart Community Access subscription pricing. By the way, for communities with more than 16 access points, that is negotiated on a, how many access points are they using, but there is a cap at $499 per month. We will never charge more than that for number of doors into a property. And then this is the charge for your 30-day video storage. It's $15 per CAPXLV. And then the individual licenses are $1 per license. Now, guest management is separate from the video features, but if they want the guest management feature where residents can issue their own codes for visitors, that's a $49 per month charge to add that feature. And this is just our current price list, which I'm sure you already have access to, and of course your pricing is different. These are list prices, what the end consumer would pay, not the dealer. And then we have different tools available for the CAPXLV. We have a product guide and a product brochure. We have the videos that we talked about earlier. We have flyers, the price guide, and the parts price list. So all of those are available to you. And then we have our different how-to videos for how to prepare the site, how to pre-configure a CAPXLV, how to install the CAPXLV. Those are all separate videos. We try and keep the videos relatively short. We don't want to have to make people sit through a half-hour presentation. Now, to upgrade an existing CAPXL to the CAPXL Cam, you mount the camera, and there's a single wire connection that goes down to the computer section, the main brain of the CAPXL, and you just plug that in. That's it. There's nothing more to it than that. Do remember to remove the protective lens from the camera, because if you don't, then you're not going to get pictures of anything, because the protective lens is dark. So,
hey, Bill,
is.
Hey, Bill, real quick to say, does the firmware have to be changed before you plug that camera in?
Well, you do need to have the correct firmware. And what is the correct firmware? It's, I think it stated that right in the beginning of this presentation. So let me just skip back.
It gets up to 2.11, if I recall. So
that's what it is now. If you go to the current version of firmware, you'll be fine. But it does state what revision is acceptable.
When you
just
connect
with the new display. Yeah, it's 2 and above. 2.0 and above works with CAPXLV.
And when you connect the camera, it'll detect that the camera is added to the CAPXL, and then at that time, it'll want to do the newest update for that firmware.
That is correct. It will suggest that you update firmware to make the camera work.
So hey, we ran a little long, but we got a little bit of a late start. So I don't know, Bill, if you're available to stay on the line, that'd be great.
I'm fine.
Okay. If anybody needs to jump, again, I'll send out a recording of the session afterwards. I've got a few questions here that have come in via chat. I just want to make sure we address. What is a event, in air quotes, that would get a video recording? And I don't know if we've got a full list of those events, but we've talked about a couple, right? The shock sensor. So if somebody bangs on it, you're going to get
placing a call through the system.
Placing a call.
Using an entry code to access the door through the system.
And would a
using
card
using a card to access the system.
that would record a video event?
Yes.
Okay. And I don't
That is
know.
an activity that has occurred.
Very good. Nicholas, when a resident gives access to a guest, can an audible confirmation sound be heard? So like access granted.
Yes, it makes a little upbeat ding sound, and you get a screen message that says access granted.
Very good.
If it's
John,
access denied, you hear a "bah" sound and it says access denied. So there is both an audio and a text that appears on the screen.
very good. John asked, does the app allow a resident to open a gate without first getting a call? And can it be used like a credential, in other words? And what about secondary access points? Can these be controlled from the app? Bill, today?
Not from the phone app, no.
Today, no.
MyQ, they can. If they have access to MyQ, then yes, they can control any gate on the property to which they've been granted that control. So when you invite someone within the property to join the MyQ business program, you can select what capabilities they have within the program. So you can select whether or not you want to give them access to open specific doors or not. And that's based on what group that user is associated with.
Right.
So you get to select that when you invite them in. You give them a role within the property, and you can give everyone with that role certain abilities within the property. But that is done through MyQ Business, not through the phone app. The phone app is just for receiving video calls.
Today.
Today. Yeah.
Yeah, they're working on it. They're working on it. Greg asked, does the cost of licensing come when issued to a resident or when the property manager gets the bundle of 10? It's when they get the bundle of 10. So they'll go in there, add a bundle of 10,
Yes.
and immediately they'll be.
As they add the bundle of 10, they will be billed $10 per month for that.
Yep. And what about residents where they want 2 licenses for husband and wife, and that's it? Are they paying for 10? So let's break this out 2 different ways. Number one, if you've got a large community and within that large community, husband and wife want an app, that's fine. It's 1 license each, okay? But
Per user.
per user. In the case where you've got a residential application and you want an app for the husband and the wife, that's where we shift over to the standard MyQ app, not the MyQ facility app, okay? And that MyQ app for a residence, if connected with the gateway, that operator's connected with the gateway, that's no charge, right?
That's correct. You can add guests into a standard MyQ account.
Yeah, so I want to delineate
But that would not be a video. There's no video feature involved with that.
Right. So
that's just controlling the door physically.
Yeah.
Or gate.
Yeah, so we got to kind of delineate those 2. Longer term, I know they'll merge to some degree, but today you've got kind of 2 separate apps. One's for these big communities and one's for that residential operator. Okay.
Right. There will be a residential version of the Connected Access Portal sometime in 2021.
Looking forward to that.
So am I.
Greg also asked, is there any way to create an event based on just motion? I believe today the answer is no. Bill?
Well, I don't necessarily know that to be true, because I'm just thinking about the loop board that you can add to the system. I don't know if that can be triggered to create an event. I will find out for you. I do not know that at this time.
I think if you're looking for like pixel change on the camera and you're saying, hey, in this particular zone, if you see pixel change, record an event. I don't believe we have that functionality today.
Not at this time, but you do have the ability to do live streaming. So you can see exactly what's happening at any moment in front of the unit.
Yeah, at any point, the manager could log in and see any camera that's on that facility.
That's correct. Or they could monitor those and, watch it that way.
10-4. John asks, is there a discount to dealers for the app license like the normal monthly fee is now?
Not to my understanding. That's
Correct.
something to take up with marketing, but my understanding is that the fee for that is the fee for that.
I believe that's a fixed cost. Is there a maximum amount of licenses that can be issued for one CAPXLV?
50,000,
50,000, yeah.
which is the number of users available within the CAPXLV system.
Exactly. So, hey, we've ran a little long. I want to recap a couple things. And then again, I'll be happy to stay on and answer more questions. But I do want to just reinforce any connected product. I don't care whose it is, LiftMaster or somebody else. A pre-site survey is just super critical, okay? We need to make sure that we've got the data speeds and the bandwidth that's critical. Again, data speed, and also, again, I just want to reiterate what Bill said, a phone.com account being the key provider for your SIP on the CAPXL is required. I think most, as I've understood it, most folks use phone.com, although there's a cross-section of folks that use other type of SIP providers for their CAPXLs. If you want video, we need to use phone.com for that SIP provider.
Yeah, we've tried with other providers and it's just not been successful.
That could change in the future, but today that's the current state. Remember, 24 hours of free video backup, and then you can pay for additional video backup up to 30 days. And one thing I think Bill showed it, but I really like about this product is that there's a picture-in-picture. So when you look at that big,
Yes.
The CAPXL, and you've got that beautiful screen with an image, there's also a picture-in-picture there showing you walking up to the CAPXL, right? So you automatically know, hey, I'm on camera here. I better mind my P's and Q's. So I think it's a nice anti-vandalism feature set there. And just again, just want to make sure we're clear. The CAPXL cam, I think you got a great opportunity to go back to existing CAPXL installations and offer a CAPXL cam to those installations. It's a pretty nominal fee. You saw a $299 list. Of course, you're going to pay less than that.
Right.
By adding that CAPXL cam, you automatically get that picture-in-picture, and you automatically get that 24 hours of storage on events. So again, nice feature set. Allows the managers to go in there and see the camera, and if you want to sell apps after that, then that's a nice upgrade to any existing CAPXL installation. So again, I'm gonna provide a recording, I'm gonna offer a bunch of notes, a bunch of links to videos. They've done a really nice job creating those short videos, as Bill mentioned. So this post webinar follow-up is going to be fairly inclusive, a lot of information for you. They've got their worry-free installation support, a whole separate group dedicated to making sure that your installations go smooth when it comes to video. Control Products has our CAP Concierge service, where we will take you from pre-sale information and support to post-sale information and support, all the way up to training your property managers on the other end. Some of the feature sets and some of the services in there come with a fee, but call a local CPSG branch to understand that a little bit better. We've been very, very successful with that, and our clients absolutely love the service, just making sure everything goes smooth for your CAPXLV installations. So Bill, anything else to add before we sign off?
Well, I'll get you those presentations later today so that you can then provide those to everyone who needs them as well.
I appreciate it. Thanks again, Bill, for organizing and presenting. Any other questions? I'll just throw it out there. And at this point, feel free to unmute your mic and ask a question. Be happy to address it now. We got another question coming in. Okay, in my area, there have been much more interest in video from the residential users with a private driveway gate rather than from larger communities and HOAs. Perhaps a recommendation for future product is a smaller version of the CAPXL. 100% agree. Designed more for the residential user and single access point. Something along the lines of an EL25. Yeah, they're working on it. I hate to just keep saying that, but they've got that in the product roadmap. We're pushing hard for it as well. We can't wait to see it. We've seen a prototype and it's beautiful. And I think we're all kind of waited with bated breath. So
we do want to make sure it works before we put it on the market.
Yep, that's
so. You got to give us some time there.
I agree. We only get one chance. John asks, is the app reusable? Yes. Yes, that's
yes. If someone leaves, you can unlicense them and then give that license to somebody else. Yes.
Yeah, it's a great question because, you know, a lot of apps and mobile credentials these days, there's varying paths to market or ways that they're selling those licenses. And some of them, you load it on that phone once and that's all you get. If you upgrade your phone, you've got to buy a new license. Not the case with MyQ-Business. You can pull that license back and then reissue it to somebody else, to Bill's point. You can also, it's a pretty user-friendly interface. You can send an invite for the app and then they very simply download it and hit verify through an activation code. You can resend the invite or a reminder for the invite. So they did a really nice job there. All right, Nicholas, I was shown by CPSG that various images can be loaded on the home screen. How can this be done by on-site management staff? So anybody with the MyQ-Business login that's in the proper role, okay? So we have the ability within MyQ-Business to define the role of the person. So if it's a resident, for instance, they can't change the image at the CAPXL, but a manager of sorts or a dealer manager of sorts wants to go in there and update that image that's shown on the CAPXL, they have the ability to do that, and it's very easy. Just go into the proper section of MyQ-Business and select an image. It's one of the beauties of cloud-based telephone entry and software, right? Is you can log in from anywhere. And you can define the roles. So the roles of the people doing the database management, if you want somebody that's just going to simply add residents, delete residents, maybe assign an entry code or a credential, you can narrow their view of what they, not only what they can do, but kind of what they can see. So, you know, you kind of make sure you don't run into any pitfalls with maybe, you know, kind of a basic admin, maybe going in there and messing up a setting or something like that. So very cool functionality. And yes, the MyQ.
I'm not sure how to stop sharing my video here.
Oh, that's okay.
Screen, you probably are seeing my other screen. Can you stop me?
I think I can. But I think we're going to wrap up here anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and hit stop recording. Thanks everybody for attending. I apologize for the late start and thanks for hanging on a little longer. Please reach out if you have any questions, hit your local CPSG branch and they will get you some more information and a quote. Have a great day. Thanks again, Bill.
All right. Bye-bye.